Here with Reaction 2016, presumptive, well, he will be the Republican nominee. Donald Trump is with us. Mr. Trump, good to see you.
Hi, Sean.
Your take on the meeting, what'd you think?
I thought it was a great meeting. We discussed a lot of things, a lot of very important things, and I thought it was really a very, very good meeting. I think Paul felt the same way, and everybody else did also.
Yeah, you know, maybe that's just me. There's a part of me that thinks, I understand it, people saying, you're the nominee, you have the job to unite the party, but doesn't he, as the Speaker of the House, also have that job?
Well, I think he does, and I think he's doing a good job. He's got not an easy job, and I don't mind going through a little bit of a slow process. It's a very big subject. I mean, we have a lot of things, and I think for the most part we agree on a lot of different items, and we're getting there. I feel very strongly about border security. I feel very strongly about trade. I feel very strongly about building up the military, and, you know, to a large extent, I think Paul is there also. So yeah, we'll get there. I'm pretty sure.
But I've interviewed you a lot in this process. You say you want conservative justices to the Supreme Court. You said you'll even give us a pool of names before the election, right?
Right, I'm going to do that, yes.
Right. All right, so you're going to build a wall. That's conservative. Conservative justices obviously are. You've said to me repeatedly you want to get our budget back in balance, that you will repeal and replace Obamacare, right, likely with health care savings accounts?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Common Core, we're going to get rid of Common Core, bring education locally. We're going to do that. We're going to protect our Second Amendment, so important, so important. And, you know, the Second Amendment is being chipped away at. And as far as Hillary's concerned, she wants to abolish the Second Amendment. I really believe she wants to abolish the Second Amendment. Her whole view on guns she's a disaster in so many different ways. So we're going to, I think we really had a great meeting today, and I think we agree on a lot of things, and it'll be a little process, but it'll come along, pretty sure.
You know, and then you want to be energy independent. You said you want to take care of vets. You want to build up the military. Maybe it's me, and maybe I'm a little cynical here. What does he want to know? Why is this so hard for him to say, yeah, I agree with him on all of those issues right there, and Hillary Clinton is on the other side? I don't understand why that's so hard.
Well, I think a big thing today was the judges, you know, the justices, Supreme Court, and I think that they felt very good about it. I had this idea a couple of months ago because I was getting a little bit of pushback from some great people and some great friends of mine that are in Congress, and they were telling me that, you know, how can we feel a little bit better? And I came up with this idea that I would come up with a list of really, really terrific, acceptable judges, conservative, and I'll put that list forward, and that'll be a list from which I'll choose, or at least a list, at a minimum, a list from which I'll sort of use as a guide. And I'll tell you, that went a long way. People really like that idea a lot.
You know, I think a lot of people do, and I've even heard people talk about maybe even naming some cabinet positions. I mean, you've got a team of people. You got Ben Carson working for you now. Chris Christie's working for you now. Would you maybe name some of those people along with Vice President before the election?
I do think so. I think before the election I'd name some, and I think they'd be really great. We have some great names. You just mentioned two of them, but we have some other great names, and they want to be involved. They would love to be involved. And, you know, I get a kick, all of these people that are saying they really don't want to be understood. They don't want to be for the vice president position, but none of those people were asked. I mean, it's like one of those things, you know, they're all turning me down, but they were never asked. And I guess they turn me down because they know they're not going to be asked. But we have some incredible people for vice president that I think you'll be very impressed with, and I'll do that announcement probably during the convention in Cleveland.
Let's talk. There was a report this week. You narrowed it down to 5 or 6 people. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say that's true. That's true.
Okay. And you're going to give me an exclusive news-breaking hint right here. Anything you can tell us about that?
Well, I can tell you you'll like most of them. I'm not sure about all of them, but you'll like most of them. But I think the end result is you'll like the final pick, which is the only one that counts. And you know, we're going to have some interesting days and nights ahead because it's really tough. I mean, it's a tough decision. You have some that are really, really strong in some areas. We want to get somebody that's really good in all areas. And I think we have a few that are really excellent and that people are going to like and really respect as people.
Let's talk about some issues came up this week about, in the last week and a half, some ambiguity on issues of minimum wage, raising taxes. whether or not you were softening your stance about bringing refugees into the country. So let's clarify. Minimum wage.
Okay, well, let me just tell you, the only thing I am talking about a little bit is I like the idea of the states looking at minimum wage, because if they don't, you know, New York is totally different than if you go to Alabama, Arkansas, so many places that I love. They voted for me. I love them all. But you're talking about a whole different, you know, cost of living. So what's good for New York is not necessarily good for someplace else. New York is very expensive to live in, and I could see having more in New York and less in other places, and yet your standard of living might be better in Alabama or, as I said, Arkansas and other places than it would be in New York, even though New York would have a higher minimum wage. So I really like giving it to states to determine. Plus, they have to compete with each other among, you know, other things, but they have to compete with each other. So I like the concept of giving it to states. And in some states where it's more expensive, maybe they do have to lift the minimum wage. And in others, they won't have to do it, and those people live very well. So that's the way it is. Now, they also have to compete with each other in business. So I really like the idea because it's so different. You know, it's a big country. It's so different, and the cost of living is so different. I like letting the states set the minimum wage.
How about tax increases? I saw that you had said, well, maybe we'll raise taxes on the wealthy. You clarified it on Twitter.
I didn't clarify, John. Look, these people on minimum wage, number one, I said about states, and I think it's very clear, and I think it's a good idea. And I've been universally praised for that. As far as taxes are concerned, all I said is you know, when I put in taxes, it's really a proposal. It's not a policy. It's not anything. It's a proposal. So you put in taxes because you're going to have to negotiate with Congress. You're going to have to negotiate with senators, and you're going to have to negotiate with Congress people. And it's going to be a tough negotiation. I'm going to possibly have to lift it from my proposal, but that proposal, and even when lifted, will be a lot cheaper than it is right now. As you know, Larry Kudlow is in love with my plan, and Larry Kudlow is a fantastic guy. And Larry Kudlow, really, he likes my plan the best. But my plan is the biggest cut of anybody. I have the biggest tax cut of anyone. But remember, when I put in the proposal and proposed rates and everything else, that's going to be negotiated. You're not going to put in and everyone's going to say, oh, that's wonderful, I'm going to leave it right there. So I expect, now I will tell you, we're taking care, big league of the middle class, we're taking care of business. Our business taxes are being reduced by a by a tremendous sum. And I will say, perhaps from my low proposal, perhaps the wealthy will go a little bit up from that standpoint, but that's all I was saying. They're not going up. So that's not a clarification. That's just all you have to do is read it. And I'll tell you who covered it well. Yesterday, the Wall Street Journal had a front page article, covered what I said so well, because the Wall Street Journal writer really got it. He understood it. It was covered so perfectly.
Well, listen, you know, when you really look at the latest numbers that have come out, this is the scary part. And I asked you a lot when we were on the road together. I'd ask you almost every interview. I mean, you have 1 in 5 families that don't have a single family member in the workforce. Look at young people today. Young men, 18 to 34, this is staggering. 1 in 6 are either incarcerated or don't have a job. Now, if we don't turn that around, then our country is in decline, and irreparably so in many ways. That's going to be probably the biggest challenge you have, right?
Well, we're losing our businesses. We're losing our manufacturing. You know, I won New York, and I won Pennsylvania and Maryland. I won everything. I won every state. You look at Indiana, which was the most recent one. And then the other night, we just had a fantastic night also in Nebraska, in West Virginia. You look at what's happened to West Virginia with the miners, where Hillary Clinton says she wants to put the miners and the mines out of business. And I say just the opposite. We're going to put the miners back to work, and we're going to open up the mines. It is just insane what's going on. She's like a job-killing machine. She is horrible in terms of the economy. Horrible. Don't forget, it was her husband who signed NAFTA, which was probably the greatest, in terms of a disaster, the greatest disaster we've ever had economically for jobs. I went through New York and Pennsylvania and Maryland and Connecticut, all these states. They're like empty. The
scary.
Jobs have been sucked out of us. They've moved to Mexico. China's taken our business. We have to get our country back to work. We don't have any jobs. And I can do it. Believe me, that's what I do best.
Well, every exit poll shows jobs, the economy, are people's top concern. Obviously, this president has accumulated more debt than every other president before him combined. Let me ask you another issue. James Comey, our FBI director, our assistant FBI director, Obama's special envoy to defeat ISIS, General Allen, our director of national intelligence, James Clapper, our Homeland Security chairman, Mike McCall, have all said ISIS will infiltrate the refugee population. You took a strong stand. It was reported today that you said, well, that's only a suggestion, a temporary ban. Explain.
No, I would not allow people to come in from Syria. They're not vetted properly. They're moving in by the thousands. You remember I told you thousands of people are going to pour in? I turned out to be right. Everyone said I was wrong. I was right. Thousands of people are coming in from Syria. We don't know who they are. If you look at the migration, you have a lot of young, strong men. You look at the women. Where are the women and children? You don't have many by comparison. We cannot allow people to come in from Syria, and I would stop it, and I would stop it immediately. We have tens of thousands of people coming into this country. We don't know who they are. There's no paperwork. There's no documentation. Now, with that being said, build safe zones over in Syria, and I'll get the Gulf states to pay for it because our country has no money. We have to rebuild our infrastructure in this country. We have a disaster going on in our country. Our roads, our highways, our bridges, our tunnels, our airports, our hospitals, our everything, our schools. We have a disaster going on. So we're going to rebuild our country. We have to start. We've spent now almost $5 trillion in the Middle East. We can't do this anymore. We have to get back. Now, we have to knock the hell out of ISIS, that I have to say. But we have to get back to rebuilding our country.
We'll take a break. The Washington Post has an army of 20 people that want to look at every single aspect and phase of your life. Also, we'll talk about the polls against Hillary Clinton, the hypothetical, well, what will be the matchup as we continue with Donald Trump right after the break, and also coming up tonight.
We're all on the same page. It was positive. It was cooperative. It had a good spirit in the room.
That was RNC Chairman Reince Priebus talking about today's meeting in Washington with Donald Trump and Paul Ryan. He'll join us with his perspective. Also, Laura Ingraham, Ari Fleischer, and much more. What do Republicans need to do to beat Hillary Clinton in the fall? And then later tonight, the patriarch of Duck Dynasty, Phil Robertson. He was a Ted Cruz supporter. He's now supporting Donald Trump. He'll explain straight ahead. Hannity, as we continue now with 2016 Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. You had the Quinnipiac poll. You're winning by 4 in Ohio. You're dead even in Pennsylvania and Florida. How do you interpret that poll?
Well, I think really good. We have to win Florida. I think I'll win Florida. I won Florida against Marco by a massive, massive number. We had 20% victory. Everybody said, wow, that's incredible. That's a great state for me. And Pennsylvania, we just won massively, as you know, and I think we're going to win that against Hillary easily. She wants to put the miners and steel out of business, essentially. She wants the miners out of business. I think we're going to win Pennsylvania. And Ohio is a great state for me. Ohio is fantastic. I actually did very well in Ohio. We had a great number.
And you went
in
up
Ohio
against the
recently.
popular governor. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I did a very good job. If I would have been there for 2 more days, you would have seen. But we did a very good. We got a great number in Ohio.
You look at the Clinton. I don't know if you've ever seen years ago. They came out with the war room. How the Clintons fought back in 1992 against George Herbert Walker Bush. Very insightful. Gives you some insight, by the way, into your friend George Stephanopoulos. I don't know if you've seen that, but we know about the Clinton machine. We know they play dirty. We know they'll say and do anything to get elected. Between that and the Washington Post announcing that they have put 20 people to dig into every single phase of your life, are you prepared for what's coming? It's not if it's coming, but when it's coming.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because every hour we're getting calls from reporters from the Washington Post asking ridiculous questions. And I will tell you, this is owned as a toy by Jeff Bezos, who controls Amazon. Amazon is getting away with murder tax-wise. He's using the Washington Post for power so that the politicians in Washington don't tax Amazon like they should be taxed. He's getting absolutely away. He's worried about me, and I think he said that to somebody. It was in some article where he thinks I would go after him for antitrust because he's got a huge antitrust problem because he's controlling so much. Amazon is controlling so much of what they're doing. And what what they've done is he bought this paper for practically nothing, and he's using that as a tool for political power against me and against other people. And I'll tell you what, we can't let him get away with it. So he's got about 20, 25. I just heard they're taking these really bad stories. I mean, they're, wrong. I don't even say bad. They're wrong. And in many cases, they have no proper information, and they're putting them together, they're slopping them together, and they're going to do a book. And the book is going to be all false stuff because the stories are so wrong. And the reporters, I mean, one after another. So what they're doing is he's using that as a political instrument to try and stop antitrust, which he thinks, I believe, he's antitrust. In other words, what he's got is a monopoly. And he wants to make sure I don't get in. So it's one of those things. But I'll tell you what, what he's doing is wrong, and the people are the whole system is rigged. You see a case like that, the whole system is rigged.
That's
whether
pretty
it's Hillary
corrupt. I think
or
that's a
whether
good
it's
point.
Bezos.
Yeah, well,
No, he's using, he's using the Washington Post, which is peanuts, he's using that for political purposes to save Amazon in terms of taxes and in terms of antitrust.
Wow. Let me ask about Hillary. You commented about her being an enabler. You talked about the abuse of women. And, look, those women, I've interviewed Juanita Broderick, Paula Jones, Kathleen Willey, and a lot of other women. And they tell their stories. But more importantly, they tell about how they were smeared and slandered and besmirched when they did tell their stories. I haven't heard you talk a lot about the email server investigation. I haven't heard you talk a lot about the Clinton Foundation. Hillary says she's for women. The foundation took a lot of money from the Saudis, and I've never heard her criticize the Saudis' treatment of women. Is that because they bought her silence?
Well, I talk about the emails all the time. I mean, and what can you say? Does it get any more corrupt or crooked than that? And it looks like she's being protected. Otherwise, how would they let her go down the line this far? And just before she gets this phony nomination, you talk about a rig. I watch this guy, Bernie Sanders. I'm no fan of his, but I watch him win every night, and everybody says he can't win. He wins, he can't win because she has these super delegates. So I'm talking about that all the time. The Clinton Foundation obviously is looking to me like it's got some big problems. If you read the book, if you see the movie that's coming out, I mean, the movie that's coming out is brutal from what I understand. So
I actually know all about it, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the emails all the time. Look, people have done like 2% of what she did, and they've destroyed their life over it. And what she's done with the emails is horrible. Now, I hear the man that set it up and set up the server has gone absolutely rogue. So let's see what happens. But I think she's got some big problems with that. I just don't know whether or not they'll prosecute.
Nearly half of Bernie Sanders' West Virginia voters say they will vote for you instead of Hillary. Hillary's warned her donors. Literally, they sent out an email the other night saying even if Bernie runs the table on the remaining states, the corrupt system of superdelegates gives it to Hillary. So she's doing very, very poorly here. I'll give you an example. Back in 2008, when she ran in West Virginia, she had 240,000 votes. She got less than 85,000. What do you make of how she can't close out this nomination on her side?
She's not a closer here. She wasn't a closer last time. She's not a closer with the Chinese for trade deals. She's not going to be a closer with ISIS. She destroyed us. She really hurt us with Libya. That's Benghazi. Not only that, ISIS has the oil now. They've gone and taken the oil. Libya was her baby, and that was a disaster. I mean, what she's done has been a disaster. She's not a closer. You know, the bottom line, whether it's the election or whether it's the election against Obama, you know, in terms of the primaries, she's just not a closer. This is not a woman that should be president. We have so much work to do. I don't think she has the energy to be president. I don't think she can do it. I don't think she can do it. But you see it right now. She cannot close the deal.
If you look at exit polls, in every state, same answer. Republicans feel betrayed by their own party. I think that's playing a very big part in how this election has played out. I guess the question is, there's been two moments, I think, where conservative policies have made America a better place. You talk about Ronald Reagan. I think that was one of the most recent examples. The other would be the contract with America. These promises that you make about the wall, about judges, about Obamacare, balancing the budget, about schools and energy and vets and the military and all these things, would it be a good idea to put it on paper and say to your fellow Republicans, we're going to do these things, sign the paper, promise the American people. They're tired of being lied to. They're tired of being betrayed. And sign it and say, this is my promise if you elect me.
I mean, I'd have no problem doing it. I'm going to do it with the judges because I think it would make people feel better, especially people, you know, certain people within the party that happen to be on the very conservative side. I think it would make them feel better. That's why I'm doing it. But I think everybody knows. First of all, Obamacare, it's gonna fall of its own weight. You know, in 17 it explodes. It's dead. Okay, it's dead. It is an absolute disaster. Unfortunately, let's say I'm president, I have to inherit this mess. But we hopefully will terminate it before it even explodes. But in 17, it's a disaster. Well, I'm going to do all these things. I could certainly put it in paper, but we have to do these things. We need the wall. You know, the 16,500 Border Patrol agents just endorsed me. First time they've ever endorsed a presidential candidate. And I went to them and I said, what about the wall? They said, Mr. Trump, we really need the wall. We're going to stop the drugs. We're going to stop the problems. Believe me, Sean. All
right. By the way, I hope in the 5 or 6, you said a couple I may not like. Don't pick that person. Pick the guy that I would like. If you don't mind, on your VP list.
You're going to like.
The one that you pick, I want to like.
You're going to be very impressed.
All right.
No, I think you're going to be very impressed. We'll come up with the right final answer, believe me.
All right. Thank you, Donald Trump, the presumptive GOP nominee. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. When we come back, RNC Chairman Reince Priebus, he's here.
I can unify, I can be presidential, and I will if I'm the nominee. Both of those things not happening yet. Kind of the opposite from Donald Trump. So let's discuss these recent turns of event in the election with the man himself, the presumptive Republican nominee, Donald Trump, on the phone this morning. Mr. Trump, can you hear us?
I can.
We need to talk policy. We need to talk the state of play within your own party, but you have commanded a different headline that needs to be addressed. You are attacking Hillary Clinton for the sexual past and indiscretions of her husband, calling her an enabler. We have a panel of independent voters. They are smart as heck, and most of them don't like it. They see it as a distraction. They see it as hypocritical coming from you, and mostly they see it as potential proof that you may have no real ideas to offer as president. What is your thinking on this line of attack?
Well, this is a nice way to start off the interview. First of all, you should congratulate me for having won the race. I thought, you know, at least it'd be a small congratulations, but I'm not surprised with CNN because that's the way they treat Trump. It's the, you know, they call it the Clinton Network, and I believe that. So, you know, let's...
Wait, hold on, Mr. Trump. I did congratulate you the last time we spoke. I said congratulations on winning the big race.
Thank you
What
very
are you going to do going forward? But you made the... No. Hold on. Let's get this off on the right foot. I'm trying to address what you're putting out as the headline.
With a question. We haven't spoken. Last week, toward the end, I was essentially the nominee of the party, and you start off with this question, which is not surprising because
Mr. Trump,
I understand CNN perhaps a lot better than you do.
Okay. Let's. You know what? You're right. Sometimes it's good to restart. Here's the restart. You are going to be your party's nominee by all accounts. You are going to carry the standard for this party. You have said that once you get into the general, people will see what you have to offer. The first thing that you've come out with hot and heavy out of the box are these attacks on Hillary Clinton.
That wasn't the first thing I've come out, but my first thing I came out with, if you watched, was trade. We're making horrible trade deals. We're losing our jobs. We're losing our manufacturing. It's trade. The next thing I came out with is rebuilding our military, because our military is absolutely being decimated. We're not spending the proper money. We're not buying the proper equipment. We're not taking care of our soldiers. We're not taking care of our vets, by the way, but we're not taking care of our military at a time when we just about in the history of our country need it the most. So I talk about that. I talk about the border. I talk about the fact that we have to stop the drugs from pouring into our country. Those are the things I talk about in a very long speech in Washington, actually Nebraska, which was unbelievable. Every one of them had tens of thousands of people. I mean, they were massively attended, which, of course, you don't mention. Nor does CNN ever show the crowds. It's very interesting, because CNN, you know, I could be making a speech for an hour. They'll never show the extent of the crowd.
Well, I'll tell you, Mr. Trump, I would suggest that CNN shows your events more than they show any other candidates.
A record crowd where Hillary Clinton said she wants to put the coal miners out of business, the miners. She said,
we covered that extensively.
And the companies to go out of business.
We covered it extensively. On the military, you raise an important issue. We tried to get your campaign and the other campaigns to hold forth on whether or not they supported the current GI Bill. As you know, in the Congress, they did this sneaky vote in the House where there was no roll call, and they were going to cut money from the GI Bill to allow for other expenditures for vets. The vets were very upset. They said, no, don't take money from us and reallocate it. Find the savings elsewhere. Do you support maintaining the GI Bill the way it is right now and even growing it as opposed to cutting it?
I don't want to be hurting our vets. Our vets have been hurt enough. We treat illegal immigrants better than we treat our vets. So I'm going to do nothing to hurt our vets. I'm going to only help our vets.
So is that a yes?
Hillary Clinton, that thinks that the vets are getting too much, and they're not getting too much. I've traveled. I've seen so many vets. I know so many vets now, and I have a lot of friends. I've developed great friendships among the vets.
So is that a yes? I do support the current GI Bill?
Very badly. No. I want to bring jobs back to our country. I want to make our country go again. I just traveled. I won so many states in a row in massive landslides, and part of the reason was trade. It wasn't what you brought up at the beginning of the show, which was totally inappropriate. Part of the reason I won was because of trade. And I talk trade, and I'm the only one that can do anything about trade. I'm going to renegotiate these trade deals. These trade deals have sucked everything out of our country. And by the way, Clinton is the one that approved NAFTA. NAFTA is the worst deal, one of the worst deals our country's ever made from an economic standpoint.
All right.
One of the worst deals ever. It's taken, if you've seen what it's done to New York State and New England and virtually every state, but it has just sucked. It has sucked the jobs out of our country. It sucked the money out of our country. We're going to bring our jobs back. We're going to make it much harder for people to leave, for people to take their companies and just go to Mexico and then sell the product back into the United States with no tax.
All right, so let's unpack a little of this stuff one at a time. And first of all, just to get back to tone just for 1 second, a little bit of this is because you're on the phone. As you know, when you're in person with somebody, very often you can interpret questions and things. But I think maybe if you were face to face, it might be a little different. That's all.
You think you would have asked a different question?
No, but I think that you're taking it the wrong way, because obviously I'm playing off what the headline is everywhere this morning. I'm not just making it up. And NAFTA, I understand you wanting to bring up trade. As you know, Clinton did not pass NAFTA. Bush passed NAFTA. So you can criticize it all you want.
Who signed NAFTA?
You criticize all you want. I'm just saying you want to keep the history. Bush was involved with NAFTA. I mean, as you know.
Whose bill was it, and who signed it?
But what is your point, though? This was in the Bush administration.
One of the worst deals ever made in the history of our country, and it has just destroyed manufacturing and destroyed. All right,
that's a valid point. You just have to spread the blame across both parties, and you have to come up with solutions.
The signer of NAFTA, take a look at who signed it. Check it out.
Bush 41.
Okay. You take a look. NAFTA was a Clinton deal, and he wanted it so badly. And I have not been a big fan of what went on in terms of economic development or with the war with Bush either, frankly, if you want to know the truth. I mean, that's a whole other story. But if you take a look at NAFTA and you take a look at what's been done and how hard Clinton pushed it, and that bill has been an absolute disaster. The passage of that has been an absolute disaster for our country.
All right, fair point. You want to criticize NAFTA, doing more about trade, helping the veterans.
Back into our country, and we're going to make it very hard for companies to leave and then sell product back into our country and rip us off. And all we end up getting is unemployment of great people.
All real issues. As you know, the last time we spoke, when we did talk about you're taking everybody out in the race and now being the man yourself, we talked about how you would bring about bringing back jobs. You said, I would tax companies who don't do the right thing. I would have a tariff imposed. I said, that's what Congress does, not a president. You said, well, I'll work with them. All real issues. And that's why I was so surprised to see you going after Clinton for her husband's infidelity and calling her an enabler.
It's only retribution.
Why waste time on that?
She is playing the woman's card to the hilt. She is going, I mean, I watched over the weekend, and everything is about woman, and Donald Trump raised his voice, and, it's all nonsense. And you know what? Women understand it better than anybody. And Watch how well I do with women when it counts, when the election comes. Watch how well. Because women want to see strong security. They want to see strong military. They want to see borders where people just can't come walking across a border like it's Swiss cheese. And you see the damage that's been done to our country with the weak borders. You see what's happening. You see the crime. You see the drugs flowing in and poisoning our youth and everybody else.
But then why don't you talk about those issues and get women onto your side as opposed to talking about infidelity and enabling?
1 hour speech.
Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump, it's not one sentence. You were grandstanding on it. You were working the crowd about it.
Chris, I spoke very little about that compared to other things. You took a small amount of the speech and you build it up like it's the biggest thing in the world. But it is a big thing. Hey, look, he was the worst abuser of women.
You just said I'm making too much of it. Now you say it's a big thing.
Excuse me. As a politician in the history of our country, he was impeached. He was impeached. And then he lied about it. He said nothing happened with Monica Lewinsky, and then he said, sorry, folks, it actually did happen. And the guy was impeached for lying.
All of that can be true. What does it have to do with Hillary?
She can't talk about me because nobody respects women more than Donald Trump. And I'm going to take I will be better for women by a big factor than Hillary Clinton, who frankly I don't even think will be good to women. You know, she went and she spoke. It was very interesting. She spoke a few weeks ago, and she said, I'm going to put the miners and the companies out of business. Then she went to West Virginia, and she tried to pretend she didn't make the statement. And that's the way it is with her. You know, the lies and the deception. It's horrible. And by the way, they understand her in West Virginia, and I'll bet you that she loses West Virginia, where she was easily supposed to win. And I would bet that if you took a poll there now, myself compared to her, you'll see a big difference. But you watch the problem she'll have. But the deception and the lies, and she tried to pretend like she didn't mean it.
All right, let's talk about something else. Sarah Palin came out and said, Paul Ryan is done. I'm calling on the supporters of Donald Trump to go after Paul Ryan and make sure that he gets cantered as an Eric Cantor, you know, that he loses his seat where he is. Do you want that? Do you want Sarah Palin going out there and trying to turn people against Paul Ryan? You're supposed to be unifying the party.
Sarah has endorsed me.
Yes.
And I like her a lot. I think she's a terrific person.
But do you want that? Do you want Paul Ryan kicked out?
Let me finish what I wanted to say, okay? But I have nothing to do with that. I mean, that's her. You know, Sarah is very much a free agent. She's a terrific person, but she's very much a free agent. And I didn't know about this until yesterday. I guess she's been fighting, or she's endorsing somebody that's running against Paul Ryan, and I didn't know about it until yesterday when I read about it.
But this is a big deal. Paul Ryan, the speaker there, you have said to this point, to give you your due, hey, I want Ryan on my side. I want to work with him. Let's
I'll go a step further. I've always liked him. He called me not so long ago, I don't know, a number of weeks ago, but he called me and he was very supportive and very nice, and I thought everything was fine, and then I got blindsided. So we'll see. I mean, look, I'll see what happens. Look, Chris, I think you know this better than anybody. The Republican Party, because of me, has received more votes than any time in its history during these primaries, right? Mm-hmm. Is that a correct statement?
You are on track to have gotten
a correct statement?
More votes than anybody in this primary.
Okay, no, I'm not even talking about me. Because of me, there has
any
been a
GOP primary ever, you've gotten the most votes.
Because of me, you got the highest ratings in the history of CNN during a debate, and Fox set the all-time record for cable television, 24 million and 23 million. Okay, now, most importantly from my standpoint, in the history of primaries, and with many states left, it'll be beat this weekend. I think it might already be beat. I've received more votes than any person ever to run in the Republican primary. So I have people that I'm representing. They're unbelievable people. They're loyal. They're smart. They're sharp. They're tired of being abused. They're tired of being lied to by people like Hillary Clinton with the 3 o'clock in the morning, and then she never answered the call. Benghazi, all of the things, all of the emails. It's just a mess with her. So they're tired of it. They're tired of not having increases in their wages for a period of 18 years. Essentially, they're making less money now in real wages than they made 18 years ago. And we have a group of people that's great. This group of people has given me, and it's them, it's a group, I'm like a messenger, but they've given me a number that no other president, not Ronald Reagan, nobody has ever gotten. okay? And by the way, we have many states left. We have California, we have New Jersey, we have many, Washington State, where I was this weekend. I was in Oregon, I was in Nebraska, I was in West Virginia. They haven't even been included in these numbers yet. So we're going to break it by millions and millions of votes. So I represent a very important group of people and a powerful group of people. These people have to be treated with respect, Chris.
Understood. But Paul Ryan said, I'm not ready to endorse yet. You know you have the big meeting coming this weekend. You gave him some pause for concern. It seemed as though you were saying this weekend two things that were different from what you've said in the past. One on taxes for the wealthy, where you said you were open to taxing them more. As you know, that's against the conservative.
I didn't say that, Chris.
Well, that's how it's being reported.
NBC
Tell us.
Misrepresented, and Chuck Todd, if they put out that clip, in fact, I corrected him when he said it.
All right, so give us what is it?
For a second, okay? Let's get it straight. So maybe
Please.
There's somebody listening to your show, so we can actually have him write something.
There are millions watching.
Let me just set it straight. I put in the biggest tax decrease of anybody running for office by far, okay? And many people think it's great. And if anything, I was criticized because it's too steep a cut, but that's okay. But I put in by far the biggest tax decrease. All right. What I said, and that really is a proposal, because we have to go to Congress, we have to go to the Senate, we have to go to our congressmen and women, and we have to, negotiate a deal. So it really is a proposal, but it's a very steep proposal. I said that I may have to increase the section, and by the way, everybody across the board, businesses, everybody's getting a tax cut, especially the middle class. And I said that I may have to increase it on the wealthy. I'm not going to allow it to be increased on the middle class. Now, if I increase to the wealthy, that means they're still going to be paying less than they pay now. I'm not talking about increasing from this point. I'm talking about increasing from my tax proposal.
Key distinction. Key distinction.
And Chuck Todd understood that totally, and yet they released information like I'm looking to increase the taxes. They will be getting a reduction, but the big reduction is going to be for business and for the middle class, because the middle class is being decimated in our country. So it was totally misrepresented just now by you, and it was misrepresented, frankly, by NBC.
Hold on,
actually, Chuck Todd, when I corrected him on the show, and he put it on, and yet they go then and talk about like I'm giving a tax increase for the wealthy. I'm not. I said they may have to pay somewhat more than my proposal.
I understand.
My proposal is much less than people are paying right now. You understand that?
I totally understand. But when something is reported a certain way, and I ask you about it and give you the opportunity to correct it, that's not me misrepresenting. That's giving you the opportunity you want, which is to tell the audience what you say the truth is.
That was really misrepresented. I'll tell you, this was
about the minimum wage?
And that's the buyback of debt. I said if we can buy back government debt at a discount, in other words, if interest rates go up and we can buy bonds back at a discount, if we are liquid enough as a country, we should do that. In other words, we can buy back debt at a discount. People said, I want to go and buy debt and default on debt. And I mean, these people are crazy. This is the United States government. First of all, you never have to default because you print the money. I hate to tell you, okay? So there's never a default. But the point is, it was reported in the New York Times incorrectly.
That you said you would go to creditors and make them take less.
It was reported in the failing New York Times and other places that I want to default on debt. You know, I'm the king of debt. I understand debt better than probably anybody. I know how to deal with debt so very well. I love debt, but debt is tricky and it's dangerous, and you have to be careful and you have to know what you're doing. But let me just tell you, if there's a chance to buy back debt at a discount, U.S. debt, in other words, interest rates go up and the bonds go down and you can buy debt. That's what I'm talking about. People had it, the Times and others wrote, Trump wants to go and see creditors and buy debt at a discount. Now, there could even be a time when somebody comes in, but with the government, they're never going to walk in and say, do me a favor, would you buy my debt at a discount? In business, that happens all the time. I bought mortgages back when the market went bad. I bought mortgages back at tremendous discounts, and I love doing that. I mean, there's nothing like it. Actually, it gives me a great thrill. But in the United States, with bonds, that won't happen because in theory, the market doesn't go down so that you default on debt, and that's what happens. So here's the story, just to have it corrected. If we have an opportunity where interest rates go up and you can buy debt back at a discount. I always like to be able to do that if you can do it. But that's all I was talking about. They have it like I'm going to go back to creditors.
Yes,
and I'm going
that's
to
what they were reporting.
Restructure debt. It's ridiculous.
All
and
right.
they know it's ridiculous, but they print it out wrong purposely.
All right, so let's just be clear. Your team is saying you got to go. I know you have a lot of different interviews to do. It's good of you to accept these opportunities because it's important for the people to hear these distinctions and what's reported versus what you say is on the table from you, and that's the opportunity.
Well, there's so much misreporting. I mean,
look,
the press,
and that's why we ask you to come on.
Dishonest.
That's why we ask you to come on.
And they know it's wrong. Like you have a lightweight, a real dope.
Mr. Trump, they say you have to.
Named Jennifer Rubin, who spoke about, I didn't speak to Rubio. Well, I have spoken to Rubio. And then she said, I never spoke to Ryan. Well, I have spoken to Ryan. And, you know, she's living in a time warp or something.
All right.
You watch her.
Don't worry. Look, there are going to be a lot of talking heads. There are going to be a lot of talking heads say a lot of different things. What I offer you is this.
Someday you'll put good people on about Trump, one of these days.
Look,
anyway,
what I want is to have you on. That's why I offer you these opportunities, not to be unfair, to be fair, and to give you the chance to correct what you say others get wrong.
I'm on.
And to be tested. Thank you for being here today. Your team is saying you've got to get going, but I appreciate the time on New Day. I want to talk to you, not about you. Thank you for being with us.
Good. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
All right. There's Donald Trump saying that people have it wrong on two major issues from the weekend that you'll see in the headlines today. We're going to take you through that and everything else that happened in our interview right after this.